Welcome back to Sports Scene, everybody. Dan Freemuth back with you here on SEN alongside Gwen Begley. We're going to stick with area lacrosse, but pull out now for more of a macro view on the boys and girls lax landscape. And of course, Gwen is our resident lacrosse lover, so here to help us out with that. Gwen, I just kind of quickly want to start with this. Last season, particularly on the boys' side of things, we saw the usual suspects rise to the top. This year, at least to me, it seems we've got more parity and a little more wide open. Is that fair to say?
That's super fair because Freedom, we saw them win their first District 11 title last season. Then we saw some mighty giants fall to the bottom now with Allentown Central Catholic. Nazareth is playing well, so is Northampton. Parkland's in the mix as well. So District 11 playoffs in a month or so should be extremely interesting.
All right, so let's take a look at where the boys teams stack up right now as it relates to the district field. Now, this is part of a sub-regional, which is why you see Delaware Valley out of District 2, but then it's all of our teams. And please note, the top 6 will qualify for districts in about a month.
Yeah, and we have to include Delaware Valley in there, obviously. Won't have to worry about them until districts. Freedom beat them pretty handedly last year in the semifinals. Freedom 9-1. They just suffered their first loss to Emmaus. That's a huge deal. They'll play Easton tonight in a rematch of that District 11 6A final. Emmaus there 7-2. Their only losses out of area, Wilson Westlawn and Germantown Academy. They were juiced up after that beating Freedom the other night 12-5, getting a little bit of revenge from last season, losing to them for the first time in program history. Parkland 9-1. They're a big team to look out for. They had a big win against out-of-area opponent Springford 10-9. Then Easton in there 9-2. They have a couple losses there to CB West and Germantown Academy. They had that tight game with Delaware Valley, but I think they'll be just fine. And then rounding out the bottom there, Nazareth 6-5. They've had 4 straight wins after starting the season with 4 straight losses. In Northampton, a much improved team. They're almost there, not quite yet, but I would expect to see Northampton in the next few seasons maybe making a splash. But like you said, usual suspects there at the top.
So we've kind of got the top 5, and then it's going to be Nazareth, Northampton, Pleasant Valley jockeying for that 6th and final spot in the district field. So we're kind of at the mid-season mark here in boys and girls lacrosse. And I'm going to ask you these same questions for the girls in a moment, but let's start simply with this. When you reflect back on the first half for boys lax, who's been the most impressive team you've seen so far?
So I came in here thinking I was going to say Freedom, and then the other night, seeing that game, my mind switched to Emmaus. So Emmaus is 7-2 this year. There are only 2 losses, like I said, to very decent out-of-area teams. They entered the really tough part of their schedule this week, passed that test with flying colors. They saw the best face-off matchup of this season with Aiden Garrett prevailing over Patriots' Jared Carabinas. Garrett won 10 of 18 and had 10 ground balls in that one. Will Barber has been a force. He's just a junior. They'll be happy to have him back next year. He had 100 goals this year, the other night reaching the 200-point plateau. Also seeing a lot of production from John Hughes, who was a long stick midi last season, now changing over to a short stick, more attacking midfielder role and succeeding with 21 goals. This team, though, has to stay disciplined moving forward. They were part of 19 total penalties in that Freedom game, and it wasn't all Freedom. It was Emmaus as well. They have big ones against Easton and Parkland coming up next.
All right, so Emmaus really impressive so far, and you mentioned the likes of Will Barber and obviously John Hughes. They've also got a fabulous freshman in Jack Rustino, who's found the back of the net 15 times this season as well. So Emmaus, the most impressive so far in the first half. But now as we look ahead in the second half, who's a boys lacrosse team that you're watching in the second half?
So I picked the Parkland Trojan, and this is because they're not getting to the juicy part of their schedule until that second half. So this is a new-look team, new head coach, new coaching staff, a bunch of new kids. We see sophomore Parker Cusco making a name for himself. Andrew Matalevichus in between the pipes has been absolutely fantastic. Again, they're going to see Freedom, Easton, and Emmaus all in a row. They got ousted by Easton last season in the District 11 playoffs, and in that loss to Penn Charter, they learned a lot about themselves. Their coach told me they've held teams to under 9 goals in all 9 wins, and that goes back to Matalevichus in net, who is saving over about 75% at this point in the season. 3 players have 20 goals or more, so they have a widespread offense. I think they'll be itching to face these local teams, and they've been saving up their energy for it.
You mentioned Parkland getting into the meat of its schedule. That really starts next week. Tuesday at Easton, Thursday at Tuesday against Freedom, Thursday at Easton, and then the following Tuesday at Emmaus. So some really big matches coming up for the Parkland Trojans.
Yeah.
That's in 3A. Very quickly, Gwen, 2A. We know there's a couple of contenders in 2A, so give us a quick update there.
All right, so Northwestern Lehigh, obviously we saw them in their first ever District 11 final last year. They're 6-3. They're building off that success. They should be back in that game this season. And oddly enough, we're talking about Allentown Central Catholic beating bottom of the pack right now. They've fallen off since dominating the last 4 years, and these teams are having a heck of a time giving some payback to the Vikings this year after what they've done to them the last few years.
Still will be interesting to see Central when it gets to the district tournament, though, because the Vikings have 6 players with 10 or more goals this season. So offense kind of comes from all over for the green and gold. So that's the boys' side of things. Let's shift over now to the ladies, and let's take a look at where the 3A standings are currently at in area lacrosse. You've got Pleasant Valley at the top, the only unblemished team left in either 2A or 3A girls lax.
And we expected that. They were in their first District 11 final last year, and while they lost to Emmaus, they still had a heck of a time and returned most of their squad. You see Emmaus, they're 9-2. They're coming off a district title and continuing their success. Easton, 7-2. The Rovers have a new coaching staff this season. They've had some hiccups. They had a loss to Southern Lehigh this year, but I think they'll get it back together for the second half of this season. Freedom 6-4, huge win over Emmaus the other day. They've picked up 3 straight wins now. Parkland 4-6. They're on the outside looking into that top of the pack. They can't quite get into that top 3, but I believe that they will pick up some wins here in the latter half. And then on the bottom there, Nazareth 4-7. Michelle Mahako from Easton there. That's a new coaching staff there as well. Hazelton, Delaware Valley, again, that regional aspect coming in with the Hazelton and Delaware Valley teams.
And it looks like our area teams in terms of Nazareth and Parkland would be the 5th and 6th teams to get into that 3A field. So obviously best of luck to our local teams. Now, we just talked about Pleasant Valley being at the top of the table, but we know the Bears are a little out of our coverage area. So let's take 10-0 Pleasant Valley off the table here and give us, for the teams that you've seen so far, most impressive area girls lacrosse team in 3A so far this season. Okay,
so despite a little bit of an upset the other day, I picked Emmaus for this one. They're 9-2. There are only 2 losses, Wilson, Westlawn, and then Freedom, a 1-goal loss, 8-7. That was considered an upset in my opinion. Emmaus had all the momentum and confidence coming into this season off that District 11 championship win. 3 different players have scored 30 goals or more. Emily Hollinger with 45 goals. Bree McLean, an emerging force as a junior, now with 36. Jordan Pohl doing fantastic on the draw control as well. The defense has been great for the Hornets with junior Alani Shotwell in between the pipes. They have impressive wins against Springford and CB West and Southern Lehigh. I don't think that setback to Freedom will affect them too badly in terms of confidence headed into the second half, but they do have some big remaining games. Kennett out of District 1, Easton, and Parkland. A good strength of schedule for Emmaus, in my opinion. They did a good job picking teams.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of those games in the latter half, really important, lest we not forget Thursday, May the 4th, when Emmaus will take on currently undefeated Pleasant Valley. So the Green Hornets, the most impressive through the first half. I'm going to ask you again to look ahead. Go into your crystal ball. Who's the team you're watching in the second half in District 11 3A girls lacrosse?
Well, it piggybacks off of the Emmaus one because Freedom, they beat Emmaus just the other day. A huge win. It was great for their confidence. I don't think it'll set Emmaus back, yes, but I think it will propel Freedom forward. Paige Teletovic is back from injury. She's been dominating every facet of the game, whether it's the draw circle, midfield, attack, or defense. Paige Jenkins just reached her 100th goal of her career in that win over Northampton last week. Emerging freshman Carrie Van Dever has been a huge asset with 28 goals this season. She also spends a lot of time at the 8 meters, so she's drawing fouls successfully. They have 2 very capable goalies in Ariana O'Keefe and Maya Stickler, combined 85 saves this year. Still a lot of big matchups, though, that will test my theory against Easton, Lake Lehman from District 2, and Parkland and Nazareth.
You mentioned the tremendous Page squared combination there of Teletovic and Jenkins. They have combined for 71 of Freedom's 127 goals. Don't worry, I did the math for you. That's 56% of this team's offense coming from Page and Page. Very quickly, before we let you go, let's shift over to 2A, where it seems like it's really kind of a 3-horse race right now in terms of Southern Lehigh, Moravian Academy, and Northwestern Lehigh.
Yeah, so Southern Lehigh's 5-3. They made a splash this year with a big win over Easton. I know that meant a lot to them. They're two-time defending District 11 champs. So no matter what, I'm pretty much expecting them to see them back in the District 11 final. Then you got Moravian Academy, much improved team. We weren't talking about them last year. Now here they are picking up 5 wins. And then Northwestern Lehigh, another improved team. They just lost 16-5 to Pleasant Valley, but had a big win over Nazareth and some other teams. So I expect it to be some of the usual suspects for both boys and girls. But hey, please prove me wrong or prove me right if you don't like what I picked. You know what I mean?
The good news is we've still got regular season action to go and then the playoffs. So a whole lot of fun to be had. Gwen, thanks so much for the insight and the coverage. We're looking forward to a very exciting second half of the season in both area boys and girls lacrosse.